Okay, I'm calling to order the CUSD Board of Education meeting for February 8th, 2024. First item on the agenda, flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, moving on to item 1.2, roll call. Aaron, if you
Yes.
could.
Trustee Leon.
Here.
Trustee Manhattan.
Here.
Trustee Chow.
Here.
Trustee Liu.
Here.
Trustee Vogel, absent.
Okay, excellent. Then 1.3, board agenda approval. Could I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Thanks, Sylvia.
I second.
I thank Satish. Roll call.
Trustee Leon.
Aye.
Trustee Manhattan.
Aye.
Trustee Chow.
Aye.
Trustee Liu.
Aye. Okay, moving on to item 2. This is a public comment for closed session. Do we have any public comments?
No, we do not.
We do not. Okay. All right, then I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn us to closed session. We'll be back at 6 p.m. Thanks. I'm gonna reconvene our meeting. The board has returned from closed session. So we'll continue with item number 4, report from closed session. So for item 3.1, the board took action and voted 4-0 in favor of extending the administrative expulsion hearing of student 01-04-24A by up to 30 days. On item 3.2, the board took action and voted 4-0 to reject the student claim 23-24-BS01. On item 3.4, the board voted 4-0 to approve the settlement agreement for employee number 8422. And the board also took action and voted by a 4-0 vote to release 25 temporary teachers effective June 30th, 2024, as per California Education Code section 44954. So that's the report out from the closed session. Moving on to item number 5, communications. 5.1, employee organizations. Do we have any speakers here today?
I thought CEA President Kate Lee was going to be speaking, but I do not see her.
Okay, all right. All right, thanks. We'll go ahead and then continue on then with 6.1. It's the opening item for February classified employee of the month. So Mike, you'll lead us off.
All right. So, like I've said before, this is a long-standing. Long-standing tradition to celebrate our classified employees of the month. This month, I'm super excited to recognize an excellent employee that happens to work in my office. And unfortunately, she's not here. She's out of the country, probably enjoying herself a lot. But this classified employee of the month is our benefits and leave analyst, Aurora Noguera. And the folks who nominated her, this is what they wrote about Aurora. Open enrollment is always a busy time for Aurora and HR. With the addition of new providers, this year is especially busy. I imagine that her inbox is a tsunami of questions, many of which have been answered numerous times, yet she supports all of us, teachers and classified staff, with amazing professionalism. Aurora is patient. She always gives all the information and answers every question regarding health benefits and insurance signups. Probably her. She's very patient. She's always gives us the information and answers every question regarding health benefits and insurance signups. With the amount of changes and additions that came across her desk, she always remained calm, cool, and collected. In addition to her efforts with open enrollment, Aurora was a wealth of knowledge when it came to Health and Welfare Benefits Committee. There were often times when Aurora was helping the insurance consultants answer the questions. In addition, she organized a health benefit fair that was a great success in helping our employees make sound healthcare decisions. CUSD is lucky to have Aurora on our staff. She's amazing.
All right, okay, thank you, Mike. So Laura's not here, but I have personal experience. I think I've been one of those people who've asked the same question multiple times, and she's been very patient. So wherever you are, Laura, congratulations, and I think we'll get her certificates over to her when she returns. All right, actually, I'd like to maybe ask the indulgence of the board. I know we kind of went over the employee of 5.1. I see Kate's here in the audience. Like to maybe go back to item 5.1, if it's okay with everyone. And Kate, if you're like to speak, we'd love to have you. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I had a member that I needed to talk to and take care of at the last minute, so I apologize for being late. Good evening, board, our EC, CEA members, and our CUSD community. Last Friday, I attended the State of the District Day, really day of celebration. Representatives and leaders from our community, Fremont Union High School, school district members, members of our own board, and teachers, principals, all joined together in celebrating our amazing district. We visited schools, students gave speeches, and we were serenaded by the Miller Choir, who sang inspirational goosebump songs for us. And it was just a really wonderful day. Stacy and her staff organized this and did such a great job representing how great it is to be in our district and to join our district. Down to Cooper Diddle artwork on the walls. It was really an enjoyable day and really giving a full view of our district and all the different aspects that we offer our students, our families, and our employees. Stacy spoke to those attending about some of the truly outstanding aspects of our district, our strong academics and other California dashboard achievements. She also highlighted in a handout given to everyone at their tables a long list, a graphic list of some of the other ways our district is a great place to belong, whether you're a student, a parent, a teacher, or any other member of employee member. And some of these included a 21% salary increase over the last 3 years, minimum days, an increase in minimum days for our employees, particularly teachers, lowering of class sizes in elementary next year in the upper grade. And then following year in primary grades, 100% health coverage that we got this year, that we started this year, that the district started providing this year, increased personal necessity days, interventions in math and language arts, and extra EL support in our classrooms, and many, many more. And as I was listening and reading through it, I thought to myself, wait a minute. These sound very familiar. They're also they're very important, but they were things that I was saying, wait, most of these are things that we have because CEA and our teachers spoke up about the importance of them. And we persisted and pushed to help everyone understand, our board and our executive cabinet, understand why we felt it was imperative for us to be listened to, for the district to adopt some of these ideas, because we knew that it was going to, in the long run, it was really going to benefit our district and the students in our district and the employees of our district. And we worked on these through negotiations, as well as in collaboration in working groups, joint leadership council committees. And Stacy even mentioned during the presentation as she was going through with them that a lot of it was achieved by working together in collaboration as well as negotiations. And I really appreciated that. And Stacy and I had many years together across the table. And working in different teams and committees in trying to achieve these things. Many of those years, as I've said earlier, this year were during difficult deficit times in our budget, and we really couldn't move forward with these things. But Stacy and I both felt we had a commitment that when we were able to, we would keep pushing forward and moving forward with it. I said earlier this year how much I appreciate that Stacy, now that our financial stability is stronger with our district, Stacy is moving forward with these things and working toward them. But even in collaboration and definitely at the negotiating table, there are often times back then as well as right now that we have to keep pushing, that we have to keep persisting, that we have to find ways to get an understanding of why we are asking for the things we're asking for and how it is affecting our ability to attract and retain our excellent teachers like we have now, and how to make sure that we're able to meet our student needs, because what is required now of teachers in our classrooms and outside of our classrooms has just continues to grow, and it will continue to grow even more. And so we have to find ways that we can make sure that we have a good work-life balance, that our teachers can afford to live in our area, and that we are able to make it able for every student to be successful, to reach their ability, their achievement ability. And yet we still get a lot of pushback. One of the things we bring them up because we know that, again, they are imperative for our students. They're imperative for the long-term success of our district. Today, our teachers started the day with meeting together in the front of our schools prior to their duty day beginning, to walk in and bring posters that they had written and put together, talking about the things and the points that were really important to them. And during that walk-in, they stood together and showed how important it is to be listened to. And we will continue to bring those up to you and to our executive cabinet, and we will continue to work together in every way possible to achieve these things together. And we'll also take actions to make sure that our voices are heard. So I brought my poster, which is "Listen to your teachers." I'm sure you heard that when you were younger. It still applies today. So thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Kate, for joining us here tonight. Of course. All right, let's go ahead and move on to, item 7.1, public comments. So let's see, just a couple of guidelines. So this is a portion of the meeting where the board will take comments from members of the public for items not on the agenda. So if you'd like to address the board on any item, please submit a public comment card, either online or I think there are copies here. And public comments are limited to 3 minutes, although if we have a large number of speakers, we may limit some of that time. And then the provisions of the Brown Act prohibit the board from acting on or discussing matters that are not on the meeting agenda, so we will not respond directly to speakers or otherwise address speakers' comments. With that, Erin, do we have any speakers tonight?
We do. We have two.
Two. All right. Let's invite them up, please.
All right. Our first speaker is Hemant Bush.
Okay.
Hi,
Welcome.
good evening. Good. Thank you, everyone. Really wonderful. Thanks for supporting the community through the school board and the wonderful staff we have. It's been just year after year. For 20 years, I've been working on the small project that I do, and I've seen so many different staff members and the school presidents, and they are all wonderful and continues to be great. So thank you. We are lucky to have that. Having both of my kids gone through here also, so that's great. So I just wanted to, there is no no complaint, no, I just want to say something good about myself, I guess, today. So I think I'm very fortunate that we started this organization called California Cricket Academy. It's a 501(c)(3). It's been 21st year. It's cricket is the second fastest growing game, and I think probably in Cupertino School District it's the fastest growing game, because now even the high school teams have started competition among themselves and they play regularly too. So it's really taking inroads. In 20 years, we have produced more than 45 kids who have played for USA from Cupertino School District for under 19 World Cup or under 17, under 15. There were different international. Just now, and actually, it's going on in South Africa. There are 3 kids from the academy representing USA cricket, and USA is out of it. They lost, but the thing is, there is a substantial presence, and there are many kids who have been now moved to India or England and representing the highest youth level there. So I think we have built some strong foundation, and that's credit goes to our infrastructure, our flexibility to allow us to practice in winter under the lights and in summer for long hours and all those things. So I think we truly appreciate that, and allowing us to build the type of facility we wanted to. So one of the big project that we are proud of is that we redid the whole Luther field. It was really in a bad shape. I mean, there were all these wooden chips from all over the school district was getting put in there. It's been now cleaned up, new grass, new about more than 112 sprinklers and turf, international pitch, betting cages, all those things. So that was about, we raised 350,000. We moved a play structure and we built that. We are now working on hopefully pretty soon putting the protective fence so the neighbors are safe, they don't complain. So we need some quick approval on that. And then Dilworth, we have proposed to about 47,000 square feet of green space to create there and redevelop Dilworth. And I think it should be approved soon. So that's all. The girls team, first time we took to UK this year.
All right, thank you for your comments. Let's invite our next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Arsh Gupta. Arsh, if you could raise your hand. Arsh, go ahead.
Hello, I am a student in Lawson Middle School in CUSD, and I have noticed that many of the school's water fountains are out of order and or not maintained enough for them to be usable. There are only a handful of water fountains which are still usable, but most of them are unusable, and I think some of the connecting pipes are corroded because the water tastes like corroded iron and chemicals. If the water fountains are fixed, more students will be encouraged to drink from the water fountains instead of making their backpack heavier with a water bottle. Is there something that can be done about the situation? And how can I, as a student, help to fix this situation? Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Arsh. Thanks for taking the time to let us know how things are at school. I will certainly be following up on this. Thank you. All right, and
That was our final comment.
all right, great. Thank you, Aaron. All right, let's go ahead and move on to item 8.1, superintendent report.
Thank you. So I did want to give an update. If you remember back in October, we had made the announcement we were making a shift from our student enrollment from our school sites and moving it into the centralized office under the direction of Aaron Lindsay. And so this is our first round with the open enrollment, and I think it's been a successful shift. I know that it lifted a large heavy weight off of the school site. We have enrolled over the last month over 1,000 new families. I believe we have about 100 still waiting in queue to get registered, and all of that is done through our central office now and takes that weight off the school. So it's exciting to see it successful. We weren't sure how it would work out initially, but I do believe it's the best process. It's much more efficient for our families. They get enrolled and much easier for our schools, and so it's just exciting to kind of see that process move forward, and wanted to give you an update on that. The other piece is that we will be bringing back in the spring. If you remember, we had changed some of our board policies based on the enrollment task force that did involve open enrollment. And so we are working through the process and seeing how that, and we'll bring some updates back in the spring as to our successes with that area as well. And then I just wanted to share, because I was notified of this at a very last minute, so it didn't have time to get out to the board members, but CMS hosted a math festival yesterday. And it was held throughout the entire day, and basically it was a project-based hands-on learning. Every math class got to come in through the gym, circulate through different activities. And so it was just exciting and engaging to watch the students, because it didn't matter what level of math you were, there were activities they could engage in. And so I spent a lot of time at the frog leapers table, and just watching the kids problem solve how to move it. You could really see creative ways that they were thinking. So I just wanted to give a big shout out to CMS, because it was a wonderful, and again, every student got to go through this project. So just wanted to share that with your board, and I wish I'd known ahead of time. I would have invited you guys as well. So next time we'll get you there. And then just lastly, just a huge thank you to all of you as a board, to staff, and to our community for joining us on the state of the district. It really is that one time a year that we get to highlight truly exceptional things that happen into our district, and it wouldn't be possible without our students and our staff and our community support. And we had that full range of student performances, student speakers, and just really got to attest to our 4 priorities and how important they are in the work that we're doing towards those. So I think that's a huge thank you to you as a board.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thanks for the update. All right, moving on to consent. We have a really lengthy consent items here, 22 items. Does anybody want to discuss any of them? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion, please.
I'll move up to 9.1 to 9.22.
All right, thank you, Sylvia. Can I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Thanks, Ava. Aaron?
Yes, trustee Leong.
Aye.
Trustee Manhattan.
Aye.
Trustee Chow.
Aye.
Trustee Lu.
Aye. All right, okay, great. Moving on then to item section 10 information. So these are informational items. We have, well, 6 of them so today. All right, so the first one, 10.1, the audit report. Chris, you'll lead us off?
Yes, thank you. Good evening. Before I introduce our guest, I just wanted to start by thanking the staff, for now especially. This is our annual report to the board as far as the district's financial status as of last year. So tonight we're going to share with you the final financial statements for the 22-23 school year. And also we'll share with you the performance audit for the Measure H bond. So I'd like to introduce Charles Rabley with Crow LLC, and he will walk you through both the performance audit as well as the financial audits. Charles?
Yeah, thank you so much for your time this evening. As Chris mentioned, Crow LLP is the external financial and compliance auditor for the district. And I'll talk a little bit about some required communications that we have to you all as the board, and then go through the results of the audits. So generally speaking, we have 3 overall scopes that we conduct as part of your.
Would you like me to scroll through?
Oh, I'll have you jump to a page here.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a great question. Yes. We have 3 overarching scopes that we have for your district annual audit. Okay, so you have your financial statements themselves. So looking at the financial picture of the district. And we also are responsible for auditing federal compliance, which is when you expend these federal grants and entitlements over a certain threshold during the year. And then because you're in the state of California and you have requirements for compliance there, you have a state compliance audit as well. So those are the 3 overarching scopes. And then because the district is a governmental entity, we follow what's called government auditing standards, as well as regular AICPA auditing standards. Our responsibility is to perform those audits and to provide opinions on those 3 areas. Management retains the responsibility for the financial statements themselves. They retain the responsibility for compliance and the controls that you have, internal controls in place to be able to, provide that compliance and demonstrate compliance. So we have sort of 2 to 3 phases that we conduct the audit in. So we have a planning phase that's happening. We're actually right now just about to start for the 24 fiscal year. Then we have what we call our interim phase, where we do a lot of the state and federal compliance work, and then our year-end phase, and that's where we look at the year-end full numbers for the year, and also provide and prepare the annual report that you see before you for both the district and the bonds. So I'll talk a little bit about the district report. I want to jump to a quick page. If you're looking at the PDF, it's page 81. Thank you. I like this summary page because it does provide our results of our audit for all those three scopes that I mentioned a minute ago. The top section here is the financial statement opinion. You see that notation of unmodified. That's the level of assurance that you're looking to achieve, the highest level that we can provide from an external audit. The next three check boxes as it goes down the line relate to our internal control requirements. We are required to understand the internal controls that you have in place to produce the financial statements. If we had issues in the internal controls findings, we would have some yes check marks, yes boxes checked on that line. And that pertains to compliance as well, for general compliance of the organization. So happy to say that we have all those no's checked in that first section as well. The next section I mentioned is federal compliance, or your federal awards audit. You'll see that the first two sections, they relate to our requirement to understand internal controls specific to compliance. And then you'll see an unmodified conclusion as well. Again, not exciting stuff, but important stuff. And when it comes to these audits, just below this, you'll see sort of a list of programs. These are the special education cluster of programs. We call it the ESF cluster of programs. That is the Education Stabilization Fund. Here in the state of California, you hear it called the ESSER or GEAR funds a lot. But that's the overarching federal program, and the Child Nutrition Cluster. Those three are listed there because those are the three programs that we specifically audited this year based on what the federal government tells us to audit each year. How long those have been audited before, if they have been determined by the federal government, it says, hey, you have to audit it even if you've audited it in the prior year. So those were audited, and we gave that unmodified opinion and no compliance findings. The last section there that is listed as state awards, that's the state compliance section as well. We mentioned that a minute ago as part of the scope, and unmodified is our results. And you might have jumped to the pages that follow this one. I'm sure you did, to look and see if there were any findings that we needed to report. I'm happy to say you got a lot of blank space on those pages. And that's what you're looking for as far as those audits go. So each one of those overarching areas have a page in the report where we would list findings. And I'm, again, happy to say that we have no matters to report. And I would attribute that to the management team's efforts, not only to be compliant with those requirements and to provide us, but to provide us the information we needed and on a timely basis, because sometimes not being able to get the information, our only conclusion is it's not compliant. And so we were able to get what we needed and therefore provide that audit result. We had one finding in the prior year. That's what you're seeing on the page right there. One minor attendance finding, and happy to say we didn't have anything to report on that this year. As Chris mentioned, we also conduct the audit for Measure H. So I know there's another, I would like to go to that Measure H. Yeah, there we go. And the last page on this is sort of a nice summary as well. So we have actually two different scopes or two different lenses that we look at your bonds. We look at the performance audit and the financial audit. The financial audit is looking at what is Measure H as a standalone entity separate from the district if we carve it out and look at the financial statements of Measure H. The performance audit is looking at, well, okay, that's great. There's a financial picture of what were those funds used for in the year, and did they comply with your project list? Did they comply with Proposition 39, which is what these bonds were approved under? And so we take a sample of expenditures that were paid out during the year. In this case, you had a total of $6.2 million that was paid out during the fiscal year 2023. We took a sample of 32 expenditures, which totaled about $4.1 million, and looked to see were they compliant with the requirements of Prop 39, were they compliant with the project list? And then because if there were salaries charged to those bonds, in this case we looked to see that those salaries were charged to for appropriate purposes, they're allowable purposes within the guidance from the state law. Okay, so happy again to say that our conclusion there is unmodified, and that we gave that opinion again on the unmodified for the performance audit and for those financial statements as a standalone. So I know there's a lot of information there. Again, I always like to say it's exciting for us auditors and accountants to talk about that, but maybe a little dry on the other side of the table, but important things. And I'm happy to say that we did have those unmodified opinions, and we didn't have findings that we need to communicate to you all as those charged with governance of the district. And we look forward to the next upcoming fiscal year audit.
All right.
Thank you for your time. Any questions I'm happy to address, though.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Charles, for your report. So this is an information item, so won't be taking action, but I'll open the floor up to my board members here for any clarifying questions folks may have. Does anyone have any clarifying questions?
No questions, but I have one question. Because there's two items which is in the deficiency part of it. So is that something, is it a normal one or it's
Can you please repeat
the
that?
last one in the second, in the previous presentation, not this one? Yeah, those two, is the last one?
Yeah, so
Yeah. So this kind of things are normal. These two deficiencies have been reported. So it's not, it doesn't look like anything significant, but still though.
No, and this was one from last year where the 0.01 resulted in, was it like an $800 district?
we don't even have to calculate
Yeah,
the
it
fiscal
was,
impact
it
actually
was
when
minimal. There was
yeah.
one attendance marking wrong on a student that we had to go back.
Yeah, and I think one more is that there's a total ADA something. One more down there, I think this. Yeah, this.
So just to remind the board, excuse me, I apologize for my voice. But as the board recalls, last year, when we brought to you the performance audit, the financial audit for the prior year, these were exceptions that were brought forward, some overclaiming of ADA as part of our attendance reporting, as well as for independent study. So the district had to provide a response to the state.
Okay.
And we've done that. And so the auditor's obligation is to continue to keep track of that. So that's the reason why it's still in this year's audit. But for this year, there aren't any exceptions similar to the prior year.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, I don't have any questions. Just really happy to see the clean report, and thanks to our staff for efficient administration of our district. It's really great to see. Thank you.
Thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item 10.2. This is the an update from the enrollment task force.
So I will kick us off, and then this will be, we had a task force meeting in January and wanted to bring an update. And remember, this is our second year of our enrollment task force, and they're continuing their work. The committee is facilitated by Leslie Main, so I'll invite her up to the podium. I was not able to attend the last committee meeting, and so Mahmood was there in my place. But Leslie basically led the entire meeting.
And we weren't quite as efficient with our time, so we did not actually complete our entire agenda. But
I'm sorry to interrupt. Just a point of order. There were no public comments on the previous item.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you for the reminder.
Perfect. Okay, so this will be a really quick update. So the purpose of our task force. The group has discussed open enrollment with our elementary schools, flexible boundaries, balancing enrollment at elementary schools. As Stacy mentioned, we're going to see the outcome of some of that work through our registration process, and also the changes in our open enrollment policies. Right now, they're doing the alternative school open enrollment with a choice of one school only. And so this group had decided that, well, since we have 2 more meetings this year, or 3 more meetings at that point, that we would dive into just looking at middle school and coming up with thoughts or recommendations regarding balancing enrollment. And so I shared this with you at the last meeting. These were the items of information that they wanted to discuss at our last meeting. And so tonight I will share the same information with you, so you have access to similar data. And then I'll share with you the task that we are going to embark on at our next meeting. I did have a special guest with us. So Mahmood came and he shared pieces of the Decision Insight Power School demographer information. He did not share the entire slide deck, but shared about 10 of the different slides. And we did not include these because the presentation has already been given to you. So he did that and opened the floor for questions and comments. And so that was a great discussion. In addition to that, so some of the data that they had asked about, just as they start thinking about numbers of students at middle school, they wanted to look at the grade level breakdown. They knew what the full totals were at the middle schools using our CBEDS number. They knew what the projections were going to be, and then also the new projections, but they wanted to see how the numbers played out in our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade classes. So we shared this information with them. In addition to that, they wanted to understand our special day classrooms and where they are and how many students are in those classes. And so what you'll notice here is, for example, CMS has one mild moderate special ed classroom and one mod severe. Lawson has 2 mild mod and 1 mod severe that has CAP support. Kennedy has our therapeutic special day class, but I'm not sure if that's what TLC currently stands for, but that's what I call it. Miller Middle School has 2 mod severe or mild, moderate severe, and Hyde Middle School has 1 mild moderate. And then they wanted the breakdown of students. And what I shared with them was there are a lot of things that our special education departments looks at when they're determining what types of classrooms are going to be at the middle school. Because as you see, every middle school doesn't have the same thing. They look at where students are coming from and where their programs are. They certainly look at the number of students that if they were to attend, if they needed a special day classroom and they were to attend a middle school, their neighborhood middle school, would that middle school have a program? But what we do know is that when we look at our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students, those are not all students where that would be their home school. It's where the program best suits the student needs, which you know. They also wanted to understand our low SES numbers. And so what we shared with them was some of the eligibility criteria. And one of the things that they noticed was how our low SES numbers have increased over time. And Mahmoud shared that, you know, one of the things is that the way that the state is asking us to capture that information is also very different. It's part of the student's opening day packet. It's managed by our student nutrition department. The parents, the rigorous efforts that parents had to make in the past to qualify as a family that needed additional support are no longer necessary. And so there are certain questions that parents have to answer. And so I think this is something that we're excited about in a way, because families that may not have been receiving the services and support have the ability to receive the services and support based on their answering of questions. It gives us that data. And so, you know, these are the numbers across our district, all of them showing increases. And this was as of December 2nd. Where we ended up having the most discussion, which is probably if you have clarifying questions tonight, you may wonder about this information, were the next couple of slides that I'm going to be sharing. So they were curious about what were the, you know, snapshot in time, the number of students that were currently sitting on open enrollment are living waitlist, because that's what we're living by currently for our middle schools. And so it shows Cupertino, for example, has 1 student waiting on the open enrollment living waitlist. Means Cupertino is not their neighborhood school, and they wanted to get into Cupertino. 4 in 7th grade and 2 in 8th grade. You see that Miller has a high number of students that open enroll to get in, just their general program, not even necessarily their CLIP program, and the same with Lawson. One of the things that, you know, we've always talked about in the past is we haven't staffed schools based on the open enrollment numbers. We staff and then we look at, is there space on how we've staffed to bring kids in through open enrollment? And there are multiple times during the spring and actually in the fall when the student assignment department looks at this data. So right when that open enrollment lottery happens in the spring, and it may change this year just based on you know, recommendations or shifts that the district is looking at. But normally in the spring, we will look at it and we have siblings and we'll do our best to get siblings in. We work closely with Human Resources Department to determine how is the school being staffed and what are the additional numbers that we can have without overloading classes. We certainly look at, do we have extra teachers here and do we have a demand through open enrollment without moving teachers? And then what ends up happening, we do a very small number, which you'll see, of students that move because we staff pretty tightly. And we're trying to do that to be fiscally sound. We're not staffing loosely so that we accommodate open enrollment. We know that all of our schools are great schools. And then what ends up happening is we have summer enrollment, and summer enrollment, sometimes we have, a boost in numbers. Sometimes we have a decrease in numbers, but our staffing is set. And so at that point in time, we may be able to add students. And so prior to me leaving, we sat down with Sarah Brown to look at the class loads, and were able to determine, were there any grade levels at any of the middle schools where we could shift a couple students. So that is our current, or it was our current open enrollment living list information. Then what I wanted to share with them is how this, where are these kids coming from? If they're open enrolling to go to a certain middle school, where are they coming from? Because as the committee or the task force starts looking at these patterns and trends, they may come up with some recommendations for us to consider. And so the way that you read this is if you look at the first column going down, so the school that the student is attending is Cupertino. So Cupertino has no kids that are their kids that are waiting to get in because they're already there. But they have 2 kids from Hyde that have open enrolled to go to Cupertino, have not gotten in. They're on the living wait list. 92 students from I'm sorry, I'm reading it wrong. Cupertino students, 2 of them want to go to Hyde. 92 want to go to Lawson. 13 want to go to Kennedy. Stacy and I talked about this today, and I said it right earlier. 35 want to go to Miller, and 2 want to go to Cliff, if that makes sense. So this shows where is that demand. The one thing that I reflect upon in looking at this, there was a point in time when Cupertino Middle School was 1,400 kids. Lawson was not quite as large. Cupertino had no additional space on their campus to open up any additional classes. And so at that point in time, the way the policy was written, we designated Cupertino as impacted. We allowed students that wanted to go from Cupertino to Lawson in, and it just helped us do some balancing. We have not done that for quite a few years because all of our campuses have adequate facilities for the students that are their neighborhood kids. The other thing that we talked a lot about, and they asked questions about, was our private and not enrolled kids. So these are students who have registered to come to Cupertino. So they did it, over the summer, they did it during priority registration. They may not have wanted their neighborhood school. So if I live in the Lawson neighborhood, but I really don't want to go to Lawson, I only want to come to Cupertino if I can go to Cupertino Middle School, they would have open enrolled for that middle school. And what those families have done is they're waiting in private school until they potentially get offered a spot, and they may or may not take it. The other thing to know about all of this waitlist data, they could have chosen 2 middle schools. They could have chosen 2 middle schools, and they could have chosen CLIP. And so what we didn't tease out was how real are these numbers? How many kids are sitting on anywhere from 2 to 3 lists? What we do know is moving forward this year, they will have 1 neighborhood choice and 1 alternative school. So in a scenario like this, they may be sitting on an open enrollment wait list to get into Hyde and also Miller Clip, but they wouldn't be sitting on it to go to Cupertino Hyde and Miller Clip. So the data, I think, will be clearer. And then offers and acceptance. So Cupertino, we offered no open enrollment spots this year. Hyde, we offered 3. Lawson, we offered 4. Kennedy, 2. Miller, 6. And Clip, we offered Miller Clip, we offered 10. And that was so, our Meyer Holtz fifth graders from CLIP move up. And so we had some openings. What we didn't do here is we didn't put the grade levels. A lot of these are probably, my guess would be, they are siblings or staff. Then another thing that they wanted to look at, they were curious, where are our CLIP students coming from? And so Kristen pulled the information in her 23-24 CLIP enrollment, 33 are from Cupertino Middle School, 65 are from Hyde. That surprised me. I didn't realize that. So it's always sort of fun to pull this data because that's not what I would have guessed, but it is the reality. 21 from Lawson, 34 from Kennedy, and 47 from Miller. We then showed them our boundaries for our middle schools. And then we had intended to set off and do this task. So we had some questions that we wanted them to discuss as groups. Are there some things that we should consider that would lead to balancing of middle schools, policies, practice, or shifts? Are there some thoughts or strategies that they would like us to consider? They often at meetings bring up middle school kids and how do we get them to come back to us? And so based on this information and based on the information that they saw about our middle school, are there things that they think we should consider? We did not get to this slide, so they asked for a little bit more information when we come back at the next meeting. This is what we will jump into. And our next meeting is March 19th. So we have 2 more for the course of the year. And so if you have any clarifying questions about the data, that would be great. What we would love for you not to do is start doing the what ifs in regards to the questions that we're going to ask them to ponder, because we'd like them to be able to think organically and come back to us with thoughts, recommendations. And we will certainly bring that back at the next meeting.
I would just add, as you can see on the box with the dotted line where it says below the 700 and above 1100, we gave that kind of a parameter because, you know, we're feeling if we fall below 700, it could affect the breadth of the programs. You know, we're in that expansion of the 2 electives and we want to ensure those options are open. If it goes above 1100, we're concerned then with facility size. Would there be the classes available? Would the class sizes increases? And so just as we're looking at trying to balance out our numbers, we believe that between that 7 and 1100 still gives some differences in the campuses, but it would allow us to operate our full programs that we want to. You know, as we remember, our intent is to try to expand those electives. We'd love to have that space to do that.
All right, thank you. And thanks, Leslie, for your report. Okay. We'll open up for questions. We'll know what ifs, just 5 questions. Who'd you like to go first?
I can go. I have several. Maybe I'll just do 2 first.
Sure.
Okay. So Leslie, last time you came, or maybe a couple of times ago, you gave a really good kind of layman's explanation of why it's difficult at the elementary level for people to get off the wait list. Like there's a sibling like in 2nd grade and then in 5th grade, and like the class sizes are harder. I understand conceptually that middle school, it's more difficult to get off a wait list because the staffing is set, but I think I don't understand it on a practical level. Like I was wondering if you could maybe provide some sort of example, layman's terms of like why it's difficult to get people off that wait list.
It's I think it's pretty similar to the elementary school, is that they look at the number of students, they look at the courses that teachers teach, and then they look at class sizes. And last year they did a lot of work, HR did a lot of work with CEA to look at what are those sizes of classes. We know that a band class or a PE class is larger than a language arts or a social studies or math class. But what happens in the spring is the principals actually take the students that they think are coming to them and they place them in sort of a tentative schedule. And they look at classroom loads and they move teachers around, and a teacher may be teaching, let's say you're a math teacher and you may be teaching, you know, 2 math classes of one thing and 3 of something else. And so they're pretty fixed numbers. And in addition to that, we end up having kids leaving over the summer or kids joining us during the summer. And so there's not a tremendous amount of wiggle room as well. And so what we ended up doing is we sat down in the late spring, early summer, once we had more time to register kids and once we also knew who was leaving. And we sat down with Sarah and we said, okay, so if we know, and we really looked at the core subject areas, and she was able to say, well, in math classes across Kennedy, they're all at, let's say 32 kids. I don't remember what the number was. They're all at 32 kids. And so we really don't have room to bring more kids in. We might have room in one course because we have extra staffing, but we're pretty loaded. Now, if we end up dropping a lot of kids, then we could bring those kids in. And so we looked at it in the late, I guess it was late spring, before the school year started. I think Kristen and Sarah sat down again. And we said, okay, before the school year starts, is there any way that we are looking at our class loads and they're low enough across the subject areas that we would be able to pull some students in? Because what we're not doing is if we bring too many kids in, then that means we need to open up another section. And at that point in time, the later it gets, the harder it gets from just it's like changing a teacher's grade level. All of a sudden, instead of having 2 preps in math, because they're teaching 2, well, we just added a 3rd class. Now they're going to teach a 3rd math subject. So that helps. I don't know, Mike might be able to.
Well, and I think if you just think it from an individual student perspective, on paper, it probably looks like, oh, we have 50 students from Lawson that want to move to Hyde or vice versa. But a student isn't a one-to-one trade. So I, as a 6th grade student, have my schedule at Lawson. For me to transfer to Hyde, my schedule may not look the same. There may not be space in the schedule already existed. So it shifts because at elementary, you're just changing one class for one class.
Yeah.
Where at middle school, you have to make it work for 6 classes or 7 classes. And so it starts, as Leslie said, starts mixing up the numbers. So it's not a simple, Leslie or Sylvia, you come to my school and I'll take your spot. It isn't an easy spot to fix.
We typically do not shift once the school year is started. Maybe within the 10th day, if there's a surprise in enrollment and something happens and we're like, oh yeah, we could do this. But we typically try to make all middle school movements before the school year starts.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. So given that there's so little movement and the fact that the wait list is for some of the schools is a pretty high number. But you said that's a living waitlist number, right? So that's not necessarily this.
It's not necessarily next year's waitlist number.
It's not necessarily.
Yeah, it probably isn't. And so
students are being counted twice because they could be on multiple lists. Okay.
The one thing I think will be nice for HR and student assignment this year is they're doing open enrollment without any type of, they're doing open enrollment for our alternative schools. So we'll know who is getting into Miller Clip. That will help from a staffing perspective. The sooner that HR has the numbers in middle school, the sooner they can start determining what is our staffing, where do we have growth in an area, where do we have a decrease in the area. They balance that with who's leaving. And, it is truly a master schedule. They'll have the open enrollment numbers. And so, as the district looks at those open enrollment numbers before things are too solid, they would have an ability to say, well, you know what, rather than getting rid of a teacher here, let's leave this. It's really not just one teacher because it's not just a math class that they're going to, but you need to make sure that there's space in every class for them. And so you have the ability to look at that open enrollment information and bring the kids in. You have the ability currently to say this school is too large, which really none of them are, but this school it's okay if we decrease this, if it's going to benefit and increase others, but the length, because currently the language for elementary school and middle school is the same. You have the ability to target schools for growth, but then you have to look at what is that demand. And the demand that you see here is not a real picture because families could be on multiple wait lists. The demand you will see in the next, I think it's another month, right? In about another month will be whether or not, where do kids want to move? Yeah. And what are the schools that they're choosing? And does it make sense to staff differently so that we can allow for some of that open enrollment?
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I'll save my other questions.
Thanks, Sylvia.
I think, yeah, I think it's a continuation of the similar question. I think I'll take some of your question and I'll ask. So it's a living wait list, right? So living wait list is how long is the living wait list? What frequency it gets updated? So I can combine multiple questions into one so she can answer that. Then what's the communication between parent and the school district on this living wait list status like?
Right.
Kind of.
So this living wait list, so the sixth grade numbers, they've only been on it for 1 year because it's their first year in middle school.
Okay.
The eighth grade numbers could be kids that have been on it since sixth grade, seventh grade, and eighth grade. Or it could be just families that decided they wanted to move their student in eighth grade. So sixth grade is only 1 year. They were fifth graders at an elementary school. Their parents open enrolled for sixth grade. If the living wait list was going to continue, those families would automatically roll up to become our seventh graders, and more seventh graders may join the list, and the same with eighth grade. So the maximum number of years would be 3 years that they've been on this list, but that's only for our eighth grade students. What they did this year, though, is they emailed all of these families, and they basically said, you didn't get in, right? We didn't move you this year. You're still sitting on the living wait list. You can, if you're on one living wait list, if you want to stay on it for 1 more year, we're going to give you that privilege. Remember, we said to everyone, you have to choose only one school and an alternative school, but you have to choose a school, and you're going to be grandfathered in your same spot on that list. So if I was sitting on Cupertino Middle School's wait list for seventh grade, and I still wanted to stay on for eighth grade, and I was the number 1 kid, I could say, yes, I want to remain on Cupertino Middle School wait list, and I'm going to roll over to eighth grade. If I was on multiple wait lists, I had to choose from the neighborhood schools. I could stay on CLIP because it's only one alternative school, but I had to choose, I had to make a decision. Would I rather be at Cupertino or would I rather be at Hyde? And I don't know the data around that. If a family didn't respond, I believe the student assignment department probably reached out to them. So there were multiple attempts to let parents know, if you want to stay on it, stay on it. If you don't want to stay on it, let us know.
Because remember, we are transitioning away from the living wait list. The living part is going away.
Right.
It will just be the annual, each year we'll have a new wait list generated.
I thought that was only for the elementary part.
It's across the board.
It's across the board.
Okay, so in the same thing, right? So from the private, roughly, when I added, it's about 200.
Yep.
Wait list, 200. And let's say everybody's adding 2 schools and 1 clip. So roughly about 80, my calculation is right, about 7. Everyone, if they apply for 2 schools, about 75 students would have probably applied and wait in the wait list. So even, are we contacting the kids in the private school as well?
Everyone was contacted.
Yeah, because this is a potential for us. I'm looking into 2 parts of it, right? One is like, if we can get them, that's good, right? So because they are not in the district right now, and there's a potential. The best case could be 75 kids you have outside who would be willing to come to Cupertino.
Yeah.
Probably we should look into that. My thing here. It's not a clarifying question, but from the number.
You're doing the work of the task force.
That's another conversation.
Yeah, but it's very important because they are not in the system, and how frequently we get it updated, how accurate it is, right?
And my guess is the task force has some thoughts about that.
Okay.
Based on the questions that they ask in very, very brief conversation, they have some questions about the private school. And what do we do with that information? But what I can say is everyone, elementary to middle school, was contacted. And if they didn't respond, they were reached out to multiple times, because what we asked them to do is they had to recommit. They had to say, they didn't have to do anything other than say, even if they were only on one list, yes, please keep me on that list for 1 more year. And if they didn't do that and they didn't respond at all, then the student assignment department, I mean, Kristen's really good about making sure she reaches out and over communicates to make sure parents know why we're asking them to make a choice.
That's
Yep.
great. Okay,
Yep.
thank you. Yeah. That's fine.
Okay, Ava?
Yeah, just to clarify, so you're saying, and I love the questions that you two had because it helped me formulate my question, is in about a month, we're gonna get more accurate data based on the feedback that we recently have given out, making it an actual annual wait list rather than the current data that you're showing us, which is a living wait list.
Correct. I don't know I don't know the exact dates. So
Right.
within currently they're doing the open enrollment for the alternative schools. Once that is done, then they will open up open enrollment for neighborhood schools. And what will happen is they currently know what the responses are from these living waitlist people from the 23-24 school year. And they know who's remaining in queue and what choices they've made. And we'll have a new batch of families. Also remember that the new batch of families will have more information about the schools and whether or not there is space or capacity. So there's a lot that is going on and will be changing dynamically in the next, I think it's around 2 months. I think by spring break is when they'll be ready to share. Right after spring break is usually when they're able to give you concrete numbers.
Thank you for getting me that information. Also had the same thing with Satish with the private school data. And I'm not trying to take their job of the enrollment committee, but maybe giving them the work of the question is like, once we have this data that's more accurate, that's current, how can they come up with an idea of new students coming into our district? How can we get them to enroll into the neighborhood area that they are currently living in? And in terms of what is it that they're looking for that, you know, would maybe they don't have the information, you know,
Right.
it just,
Right.
because there's so much that our schools do offer.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's combining with Satish's need and the enrollment committee to have them come up with something.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. Myself, I have two questions, one around our current policies. And so, earlier we talked about these transfers are different at the middle school. It's more complex because there's a whole schedule. It's not just at elementary school. So how do we decide how many we accept today, given that I presume we make an accept, we offer them, and then they choose what class they want. So you don't know what classes they're going to end up in. It just seems like a very complicated thing. I was just wondering, current policy, how do we decide? Like whether we take 2 or 4 or 0 or
It says sufficient space.
just sufficient, but
It
you
says
don't,
this
I
sufficient
think that's
space
where you see where so few are actually
okay,
Because there is-
admitted in
because there is-
because we staff tight.
got it. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yep.
And the second question is, has this committee talked about what does success look like? Because the name balancing enrollment would imply you're trying to have the same enrollment at every school. So I'm not trying to drive them any direction, but I was wondering if that's been talked about. What is a success measure?
No, but we could probably ask them that as a
Okay,
fair
well, I'm not-
question. No, but it would
That's
be-
up to you.
Yeah,
I'm
I
just,
think
I
that will
think
be part of that conversation
part
that
of
they do
that,
have.
Yeah,
okay,
Yeah.
great. All right, thank you.
Yep.
And
It's
then we'll,
kind of the question of why are we doing it?
yeah. How do we know we're successful?
exactly. All
Yeah.
right, thank
Yeah.
you. All right, let's kind of rotate back. Sylvia, you had a few more?
So I was wondering about if the committee or if you guys have talked about this or not. I know that the high school district has done some recent changes and some little bit older changes regarding some of our middle schools and matriculation to
Mhm.
some of their high schools. And so I'm wondering if, and I don't know if this is relevant information or not, but as you're looking at those waitlist numbers, does the high school policies impact some of the waitlist numbers? And whether or not that's even part of the conversation.
So we've talked a lot about what currently is in place with Fremont Union High School District and how it has evolved over time. We're super lucky that one of the teachers and someone from their CAC sits on our committee, and he has a wealth of knowledge. So that is super amazing. what we have talked about is even though if we make shifts, that doesn't automatically mean the high school district is going to make those shifts as well. And so Stacy and I talked about that as well today, and that, you know, we certainly keep the high school district informed as shifts are taking place. But as we start potentially doing something different with middle school, the high school will need to be informed, but that does not necessarily mean that will trigger an action or a change on their behalf. Because if as a result of that, the high school says, well, then based on that, we will start doing this, that's super great.
Yeah.
But so we do talk about our ability to have conversations and collaborate so that we know what each other is doing, but we're not in a place where we can say, well, we've just made this shift, therefore.
Right.
Yeah. And they've had some success, but they haven't had some of the recommendations that they put into place did not have the numbers that they were expecting. And so, you know, they had hoped that, I think it was Monte Vista they were talking about. I don't remember if it's this last meeting or not, but there were certain schools that they were hoping through this choice process that they would boost enrollment more at schools, and it did not happen the way they were hoping. Yeah.
Thank
you.
Yeah. You had also talked about the allowing CMS students when it was impacted to open enroll to Lawson. So, and I know if I recall correctly, when Lawson was first built, there was kind of this one neighborhood that could have the option of going.
It's a choice. Mhm.
And is that still in place?
That's still in place. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And Mahmood and I were looking at those numbers of our choice areas and whether or not at some point in time, because most families are making, there's a Kennedy Lawson choice, and then there's a Lawson CMS choice. And the majority of families are making a choice over another. And so whether or not at some point in time, we make a decision that just is the new boundary. And so, you know, it might be something to look at, but that won't dramatically change our enrollment. Yeah.
Then I have one final question.
Please.
So the private school numbers, is this families that live within our district boundaries, private school numbers?
Yeah. And they may have attended elementary school here. They may have left for middle school. Or they may just be new. Yeah.
And if they aren't within our district,
then
they're
not on open enrollment.
They're not on
Yeah.
this. Okay.
And one of the things that the office does is prior to offering any spot, they go back in and they look up that child to make sure that that child still is in our district. And there's sometimes where they'll get, you know, number one at Faria. Oh, they moved, you know, out of state. So we're not even going to offer them that, because families don't always inform us that we are leaving and we're sitting on your living wait lists. The number of families, it's hard with a living wait list where families have multiple choices, like you're currently living now. It's hard to continually update records, whereas it's going to get easier as the wait list is not living and limited choices.
Yeah. Thank you.
Satish, you have anything? No? Okay.
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I'm good also.
Okay.
Aaron, do we have any public comments?
No, we do not.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Thank you, Leslie. All right, then moving on to item 10.3. This is a mid-year LCAP update. So Allison will lead us on. All right, thank you.
Yes, thank you. This is a newly required report this year. We've had them in other years, and sometimes yes, sometimes no. It is required this year. It's just a presentation. There's no action needed. We are reaching the end of the 3-year cycle, and we're required to report to you all the available mid-year outcome data related to the metrics that were in the original LCAP, and as well as any mid-year expenditure and implementation data on the actions that were identified in the LCAP. So I want to say a big thank you to Tina and also Ginny, who's our LCAP partner, along with Tina. They completed that portion that was attached that shows the expenditures, and you also saw the attachment with all of the mid-year outcome data that we have to date. We'll be reporting on all of the data. Before you know it, we'll be at the end of the LCAP cycle this spring and checking in back in on all of these things. We wanted to take the opportunity to share with you just kind of a 3-year look back on some of the investments that we've made and the supports we put in place over the course of this cycle. A lot of this it was reflected also in the information that was shared at the State of the District. It's a great time to look back over the 3 years and remember where we were. I think it will help tee us up for where we're going in the next LCAP. And it's also just a nice moment of celebration to look back on all the things that we've done together to support our students during this time. So we'll just go quickly through a few slides and take us through that journey. So thinking about this LCAP cycle, we're going to look back and remember that when we started that baseline year, we were still in distance learning at the beginning of this LCAP. And we were just getting going with the idea of learning hubs and bringing back small groups of students to the campuses. We were having some of our assessments were done partially at home and then partially at school. We went into the hybrid learning in April that year. So we were starting off with our 3-year plan and a time of uncertainty and you know, a lot of concern about what would come. So in the years ahead, we really focused on putting in lots of different supports in place. And in that 21-22 school year, we were back in person. We had put our summer bridge program in place for extra support in reading and math. And with some of the COVID funds, we were able to get started with reading intervention. And that started with our wonderful IAs who helped us get that off the ground in that beginning year. And then by 22-23, we had reading intervention in place across our schools and as well as in the middle schools. We also began adding the instructional assistants to help support the beginner English learners at some of our sites. And with reading intervention in place during the school day, we pivoted to offering summer bridge and math. We also began getting our ELOP program, Expanded Learning Opportunities program, in place at 14 sites. And then here we are now. We have our Tier 2 math intervention in place at our middle schools. We also have math intervention in place at our highest needs elementary school sites. We've grown the instructional assistant support for English learners to 15 of the elementary schools and all of the schools above 14% English learner population. And we plan to offer summer bridge again this summer in math, and ELOP we have in place across the district. So it's been a busy and important time for building those supports and building out our system of MTSS as we think about the cycle of this LCAP. And so lots of investments have been made in each of the areas, and I'll say thank you to Miko for helping me also put this together, and Aaron as well for the slides. The way we looked at this is if we added staff, we counted that person once, the cost, not 3 times for the 3 years. But if it was supplies that we were replenishing each year, then we counted it for each year. So you can get a sense of the investment that we made when thinking about the added personnel that I just mentioned, as well as during this time, we've also had a lot of curriculum updates in phonics and science and in history, social studies, and math, lots of different areas that you have approved over these last few years to enhance the instructional resources. We've also expanded TK, of course, during this time, as well as just grown learning time for kids who need more support through things like learning hubs, summer bridge, and ELOP. We've also been working towards increasing the devices. That was one of the metrics in the LCAP. And so we've made a lot of great progress in making sure the kids have access to newer devices across the campus as well. The second goal was our whole child goal. We've also added a lot of wonderful supports in this area, bringing more mental health therapists on board that are CUSD staff instead of contractors, adding LVNs as well as a nurse manager. First, we've added our student success liaisons, the SSLs that are helping out at our Hyde and CMS campuses for supervision. Added an additional assistant principal at Hyde. One of our most loved supports, I think, that gets a lot of mention when we go out to the school sites is the recess support that is happening at all the elementary schools. So the sites have flex funds for things like Recess 101 or La Garza, Soul Shop, those kinds of things that our vision for this was when the kids came back after distance learning, we really wanted to make sure they had a positive experience at recess, that they felt they had good physical activity and could make friends out there and enjoy their time at recess. So when they came back in the classroom, they'd be ready for learning. And, you know, I would say pretty much every time we go out to the school sites, this support continues to be mentioned. And then, of course, with Prop 28, we've added elementary music teachers and more to come on that. Third goal was community engagement. We've really beefed up our parent education events over the last few years. Erin brought us up to speed on Parent Square. That's been a tremendous resource. We've also increased parent liaisons. We used to have a handful, and now we have 12 positions at our higher need sites, but those liaisons help across the district when needs come up. And then we added an additional community engagement resource specialist, and this position supports families in need, linking community resources and making sure that families can access the supports within the district, but also in the larger community. So it's been a busy and wonderful few years, and we're getting ready to set the course for our next cycle. And, you know, I think looking back and seeing where we've come from, it's important that while we recognize how far we've come, we're really only just beginning in many ways too with building these supports. We've got to give this time to take root and get better with all the things that we're doing. We're still strengthening those systems of MTSS at the school sites, both academic, but certainly as well social, emotional, and behavioral supports we're still building out. We always want to keep an eye on that time for our staff to have professional development and collaboration time, because that is what makes the structures strong for the kids. And then, you know, we've talked a lot about our portrait of a learner and setting the course for what's ahead with that relaunch. So as we close out this cycle of LCAP, we'll be using this mid-year data, coming back to you with the end of year report, and then we'll be transitioning to a new plan. We'll be having a lot of input sessions between now and then, getting lots of feedback from everybody, and then we'll restart. So that's all we have for today, and we'll take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Allison. Open it up to the board. We'll just go in the same order, perhaps. Sylvia?
No questions, just it's so great to see it. I love this snapshot format, and it's great to look back over the last 3 years and just really see where we put our money where what's the phrase I'm thinking of? Put our money where our mouth is. It's not right. Is that right? But yeah, like just to see like the investments that we've made and things that actually are impacting our students. So thanks.
Thanks.
No questions. Great job and making good progress. Looking forward for more stuff on this.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Ava?
Oh, I have 2 questions. Thank you for gathering the data and taking it to us. I have one question about TK, since I think it was in this second goal. Was it second goal? No, I think it was in the first goal, in expanding TK. I think it's great now that all of our sites that we have TK. My question is for facilities. Since TK, the kids are tiny. Do we still have sufficient bathroom facilities for the students in terms of like how far these facilities are from their classrooms and if they're appropriate for their age?
Thank you. the question is about bathroom facilities for TK, and I think we've been very transparent that our facilities were never originally intended to, they were never built for transitional kindergarten. Most of our facilities are set up for a kindergarten scenario. So with the implementation of TK, the district has had trying to find creative ways to provide access to restroom facilities for TK. And so that is going to be one of our ongoing needs to address, and maybe through the bond program, we'll be able to extend those additional restroom areas for TK. But right now we meet our requirements because we have been very strategic in terms of where we've placed those TK classrooms.
Okay, so it's something in the radar, so I appreciate that acknowledgement. The other question is regarding, I think, goal number 3 on parent liaisons. It's good to hear that, how many did you just say that we have parent liaisons at?
12 positions. I think one is currently vacant.
To my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the parent liaisons at Nimitz and DeVargas in particular are not even half-time. And these 2 schools, I believe, have the highest population of students that should be benefiting from the additional support in which the LCAP brings in. And I was wondering if, because of that, if they would benefit from having a parent liaison that is there full time, because they do have an increased amount of students, which could benefit from the LCAP. And let me know if I'm wrong, or
yeah, so
give me more data.
You're correct that the purpose of the LCAP is really supporting the needs of English learner, low income, and foster youth. So we always bring that lens to all of the planning and the feedback sessions. And the parent liaisons are contracted, so they are hourly, and then we work with the sites to determine how many hours they need. And we have always provided more hours at sites like Nimitz and DeVargas. And sometimes they come to us in the year and say, we need to double what we thought it would be. And then we just make that happen. So it's a good point. And when we talk with them about their needs for the year, we'll be sure to ask. We look back on how many hours were used and then ask them how many they need, and then make that available for them. So you're right that some sites have a higher need and some sites have a lower need, and we adjust based on history and the student population for the LCAP.
What are the current hours for the parent liaisons for those respective schools?
Well, I could pull up the spreadsheet, but it might be easier if I email in the board update. Is that okay? Or if you have time, I can look it up right now.
Yeah, I mean, if there's more questions with Jerry, so.
Okay, I'll do a few and then we can go around. I don't really have a whole lot of questions. Thank you for compiling this information. It's really nice to, from time to time, get this long-term view and see what we've accomplished over this period. You mentioned, this mid-year LCAP update, this is a new process, or
yes,
that the state's asking us to do? Okay,
correct.
So there were 2 attachments in the, so one looked like Department of Education form.
Yeah.
And the other was more of a narrative. Or both of those is just that narrative I actually thought was interesting with the tables. Is that something we're doing ourselves, or is that something the state also asked for?
Yeah, they didn't provide a template. They just said we were required to do it. So the one that looked kind of more formal, that was part of, we used something called DTS, document tracking. So that was from DTS, and it satisfied the implementation level and the expenditures that Tina helped provide. And then for the metrics part, we just made our own in the tables.
Yeah, I really like the metrics. I think just an ask when we come back for the end of the year. I'd love to see some discussion on just the trends and what you felt worked well, and maybe other things we'll try differently. But I really appreciate seeing, because at the end of the day, those are the measures, right, for all these investments we're putting in. So just looking forward to that. So thank you. We'll circle back around. Sylvia, anything else? And Satish?
No.
Okay. And
No, that was where my
oh, really? That was it? Okay. Well, it's an empty. Okay. And Aaron, any public comments on this item?
No, we do not.
Great, terrific, thank you. All right, thanks, Allison.
Yes.
All right, let's see, moving on to the next item here, 10.4. This is the induction program for new teachers. So who is kicking us off? Oh,
We will have Laurel Henderson, Director of HR, is going to
Hi.
share. She's been overseeing this program for many years. And if you remember, last year was our accreditation year, which went very successful. And now it triggers us into a new cycle that we bring this information back to you.
right.
Great.
Welcome, Laura.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, good evening, board and executive cabinet and members of the community. So I am here today to talk about the new teacher induction program preconditions. Induction is a required and valuable component of the teacher credentialing. I'm gonna pause, may I? Is that okay? Okay, get us off the first slide. Induction is a required and valuable component of the teacher credentialing system in California. The Cupertino Teacher Induction Program is a 2-year. Whoops, gosh. Oh, you're doing it. Thank you.
We'll be back.
Dueling clickers.
Okay, should I not click? Okay. Hands.
It's in your.
Okay. The Cupertino Induction Program is a 2-year job embedded, individualized induction program that is focused on extensive support and mentoring of new teachers in their first and second year of teaching, who seek to clear their preliminary California multiple subject, single subject, or education specialist credential. Support is focused on strengthening the teacher's classroom practice, ensuring student academic success, and developing collaborative, curious, persistent, and reflective teachers who are responsive to the diverse cultural, social, academic, and linguistic backgrounds of all of their students. Through this individualized, goal-focused approach, our district's teacher induction program guides the teachers and mentors in strengthening best practices within and beyond the classroom as outlined in the California Standards for the Teaching Profession, or the CSTP, to ensure the growth of all of our students. Our induction program has layers of support to guide our new teachers through their first 2 years in the teaching profession, including site and district support with a weekly meeting with their assigned induction coach. CUSD has had a robust induction program in place for well over 20 years. First, when we contracted with the new teacher project, and then when we wrote and were approved to have our own accredited program about 2010. Each year, we serve first and second year teachers along with those who qualify for what's called an ECO. ECO stands for the Early Completion Option Program, and this is for what the state calls exceptional and experienced teachers who they must apply to participate in the program, and it's a 1-year program instead of a 2-year path. The ECO candidates are typically those individuals who've taught out of state, out of country, or in private schools. And so just to give you a snapshot of the numbers of teachers we serve, this year, we have 46 teachers, 3 of whom qualified for the ECO program. Last year, we had 55. In 21-22, we served 51. 2021, we had 41. And in 2019, we had 64. And you can see in 2019-20, we had 2 ECO candidates as well. Sometimes we have folks who apply for the ECO and just don't qualify for that. And in that case, we just keep them on the 2-year path. So induction programs in California must meet the requirements outlined in the Educator Preparation Program and Common Standards that are set by the Commission on Teacher Credentialing. Induction programs are also required to respond to the preconditions. Those are based on statute, regulations, or commission policy, and we have to respond to those in years 1 and 4 of the accreditation cycle. And our program is currently in year 1 of this cycle. The accreditation process is a 7-year cycle of activities. So this slide illustrates the accreditation cycle, which include annual data analysis, the preconditions review, common standards review, program review, the site visit, and the 7th year follow-up. The institutions are at different points in the accreditation cycle, depending on their assigned cohort. And CUSD is in the violet cohort. You know, that's small to read, but the violet piece is what's meaningful to our program here. We are in year 1 of that accreditation cycle when these preconditions are reviewed in the second column, which is 23-24. And the CTC is actually going through their own sort of their putting a pause on some things for next year because they're sort of catching up some certifications and new credentials. So they're actually bumping everything out. So our year 4 will be 1 year after what it would normally be. So preconditions, as I said, are requirements for program compliance, and they must be met in order for the CTC to consider initial or continued accreditation of a program sponsor and approval of its induction program. So there are 2 types. One is called the general institution preconditions, and these apply to all professional preparation programs in the state. And then the second is the preconditions for teacher education induction programs. And those apply to particular kinds of credential preparation programs. And on our district, that's our induction program. So we need to respond to both sets of preconditions when we submit them. So the reports submitted that in this information item include the general institutional preconditions, and there are 12 of them that we respond to. And then there are 6 preconditions for the teacher education programs that we must respond to. In the documents that are provided for your review, there are supporting pieces of evidence that we are required to submit to the CTC to affirm that we are meeting the requirements. I wanted to note that we've had many new teachers over the years who have gone on to become site and district mentors and instructional coaches. We've had several mentors who have gone on to become site and district administrators. And our induction program provides our staff with a sense of belonging. And it's an important part of attracting, retaining, and supporting our high quality staff who are seen as leaders and learners empowered to inspire our students. So today's presentation is for information only, and then we will bring this item back at a future regular meeting with the hope of approval for continued sponsorship of our program and the program responses and assurances for these preconditions.
All right, thank you, Laurel. Okay, open up to the board for questions. Sylvia, do you?
More of a general question in terms of the approval of the program that you'd be asking for. Is there some documentation on costs and things like that?
So we have, yes, we have a proposed budget that we work within each year, and we work with the business services department to define that. And it's the budget is based on, the program cost for stipends and sub costs. We have an annual accreditation fee to submit the preconditions. There's not a fee for that per se, but it is built into the budget that we work with business services on. Yeah, and I can provide more information if needed on that.
And I know that, like, in terms of it's not just costs, it's investments, right? It's investment in our own staff and providing really good quality teachers for our students. But I'm just curious about what that kind of return on investment is.
Okay.
Thanks. Satish.
Yeah, I have a quick question on this. So I see an average about 75 members, right? Every year, average if you take it like the year 1 and year 2 to take. So is it like we have some certain numbers that we can select a nominator? Is it something like that? Or is it budget driven, or what is that?
So it would be any new teacher that we hire that qualifies for the program. It's our numbers have stayed fairly consistent over the years, but if a teacher comes in and qualifies for it, we enter them into the induction program.
But it's hard that I think last few years, like average 50 to 60 teachers are being, I think new teachers are coming in. So is it like a portion of them are kind of being selected, or?
And so the teachers that go to a preparation program in California, most of the time when they exit a preliminary program, their preliminary credential has renewal. Well, they all have renewal requirements. And then most of the time in California, the renewal requirement is that they have to participate in the 2-year induction program. And then they typically have other components there. So they have to do that to clear their credential within 5 years. And then the state says to us, to induction programs, you need to start them in the first year that they're teaching. So most of our teachers come to us with that. Of course, we have other teachers who they might have a particular type of permit, or they might be an intern teacher. And those folks, while they don't qualify to participate in induction, because you have to have a preliminary credential to do so, we provide other layers of support for them. So the key is that they must have a preliminary credential. And if they're coming from out of state, out of country, or a private school, sometimes they've met some qualifications, but most of the time they need induction. So it's a renewal requirement on their credential.
And is it applicable only for a brand new teacher or an experienced teacher come from, let's say, Sunnyvale to get?
Yes, we have.
So they still need to, or they don't need? They have already, if they've done, they're fine.
So if someone,
Let's say a 10-year experienced teacher move from there with all these credentials to CUSD, what happens to them? They had to participate, or they can participate, or they need not participate?
from out of state or
No,
another area?
out of district.
Oh, out of district. If they're within the state of California, if they come to us having completed it, a teacher only does induction once.
Once. Okay.
Yeah, no matter what.
Goes with them. Okay.
And once that's complete, yes. And we do have folks who come to us having completed a year elsewhere. And then we get their transcript from that program, and we take a look at that, verify that, and then we start them in year 2. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Ava.
Yeah, thanks. I think it's great to know that we've been doing our own program since 2010, and I think we've had an increase of coaches for the induction program recently. My question with funding, since this program is required by the state, do we get some money back from the state as a reimbursement, or is it like subsidized? Or like, is there some funds for that? I don't know.
No, no, there aren't any additional funds from the state for this.
Okay, this really is one of those, not every district is able to offer it, and so it is one of those perks for a new teacher to come in. Some districts can contract out with the county, which runs a program, and others leave the individual to go and find their own induction program.
This is another reason for a teacher to come work for our district, right?
Yeah.
And then noticing the numbers, I believe they're on candidate numbers on slide 4. Maybe I missed it. What's ECO?
ECO stands for Early Completion Option. And it is meant for teachers, as the state says, exceptional and experienced. So they must have a particular number of years of teaching under their belt, usually 2 or 3. They have to apply and have an administrator recommendation. They submit to us a written application, and then we observe them teaching. So should they qualify through that, then we accept them into the program. And we sign everyone up at the beginning of the year, and then they apply. Typically around the end of September is the deadline for that every year. And then should they qualify for that, we just put them right into the program, and they're not missing a beat because they would have done the beginning pieces already.
And my next question is attrition. Is it okay?
Please, yes.
When are the people, like, for instance, in 2019, 2020, year 1, is it mostly the same people that go to year 2 the following year?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm looking at it and something's right, maybe because we hired more coaches, but every year has been a -3, except for 2022 to 2023 to this year, it's actually a +3.
For the total number of teachers?
Going from year 1 to the next year, year 2. So I've noticed
the
an increase.
numbers of, and
Yeah.
so the numbers of teachers that would go from being a year 1 teacher to a year 2 teacher, you're right, there will be some variance, and it depends upon many factors. So we don't always have the exact number that would travel from year 1 to year 2. And we would also have, as I said, some teachers who come to us already completed year 1, and then that natural attrition, for whatever reason, someone may leave our district, which
So
may
it's hard
impact
to
those
say right
numbers.
now with the data. Okay.
Yes, I mean, I could look it up for you, but I don't have that right here. Yes.
That'd be great
Yeah,
to see
absolutely.
if the addition of coaches has been effective in terms of what it's
Okay.
successful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks. All right. But first of all, thank you for the presentation. I learned a lot here I didn't know before. So I just wanted to make sure I understand. So the accreditation process is 7 years?
Yes.
could you talk a bit on, and I see there's a lot of complexity here, so it's part of my learning, but I was wondering if you could speak a bit just to help me understand why is it that long? What's the intent when they designed this? I know I'm asking you to answer questions about sort of the context, but if you could just help me better understand.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so I can say that over time, over the years that I've been involved in induction, which has been for in some way, shape, or form since 2000, basically, we have seen a lot of changes in the program at the state level. And there's always been a sense of review, whether it was, writing different programs, the site visit looked different in back in the day. But then in 2015, the state changed the standards and they updated them in a way that all of us in induction thought was a really good choice and a really good way that they did it. I don't have an answer as to why it's 7 years, other than providing the space between the submission of the documents, making sure that have the foundation of the preconditions, and then a couple of years later, we provide an update on our program and common standards. It's always keeping the state in the loop of what we're doing in our program, but also giving our program time to have that continuous sense of improvement and deciding if there's things we need to update or change. And then the site visit, while it can be a stressful few days, it's a really exciting process. And so that's in that 6th year. And then the 7th year is a chance. For example, our programs have always been fully accredited. So the 7th year for us is sort of a down, in terms of state submitting documents, there's nothing we need to submit that year other than our annual data. But should a program need to provide additional data at the request of the state, that 7th year is when that happens. So yeah.
Okay.
I think part of it too, if I could just add, is the 7-year cycle allows 3 cycles because you have year 1s and year 2s. So you can have 3 cycles. And then that 7th year is the review of all. It gives a little bit more time for each cycle to go through.
Okay, makes sense. Wow. Okay. Learned a lot new today. Any other just questions?
The last one, I don't know if it's relevant or not. Can they carry, since you said about the 7 years, can they carry out? They have done partially somewhere. When they move in here, they can continue with that.
A teacher?
Yeah.
Yes, they can do part of a program elsewhere and come to us to finish.
Okay, and that will continue from where they stop.
Yes, correct.
Okay. No other.
I guess I was thinking an easier ask is like how many people that actually start a program, either in year 1 or year 2, successfully finish.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Actually, yes. So I can get that for you. We because we have to submit completer data to the state every year with the it's the accreditation data cycle. So every single year we need to submit data no matter what year of the cycle. So I can that would be called completer data, and I can get that.
Yeah, I figured that'd be easy.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
Of course.
All right. Aaron, do we have any public comments?
No, we do not.
Okay. Oh, great. Thank you, Laurel.
Okay,
Thanks for the
thank you.
presentation.
Thank you for your time.
All right, let's move on to item 10.5. This is a CalShape grant application. So
I think Chris is gonna kick us
I'm not
off.
going to even attempt to talk at this point.
Yeah, talk to me.
All right, welcome, Todd.
Thank you. So this item is an informational item. It's CalShape grant application, more specifically plumbing grant. So as you recall, we have passed, we're moving forward with the CalShape ventilation grant. This one specifically to plumbing. Process is to, part of the criteria with the California Energy Commission is for our board to pass the resolution. So we're giving you information tonight to then, as a follow-up, potentially pass the resolution at the next meeting. A little bit of information on the plumbing grant. So overall, with the grant, we qualify for $274,647. So not huge like the LED lighting, which is actually a good sign because the consultants that went through our district to do an audit and assessment only found 85 toilets and 31 urinals that needed to be upgraded to be more water efficient. So kudos to a bond program, kudos to our maintenance department. When items needed to be repaired, they repaired them and replaced them with updated equipment. So this will affect 6 sites: Eaton, Miller, Muir, Stockelmeyer, Marholtz, and Regnart. And as I mentioned, 85 toilets, 31 urinals, total $274,647.
Again, this is just for information tonight, but we would bring it back for people at a later date.
All right. Any questions from the board, Sylvia?
So the $274,647 covers the entire cost of the 85 toilets and 31 urinals?
Correct.
All right.
Yeah.
And Satish.
Okay, so you mentioned only few sites.
Mhm.
And this is limiting only there to use, or we can use it anywhere, this money?
It'll be a replacement at those sites. So the assessment team went through all of our sites and determined that these were the only eligible equipment that could be replaced under the grant.
I was just connecting to one of the comments. We got it for the water, what are that? Yeah, water fountain and things that, does it cover those?
Fortunately, no.
No, okay. Okay, this is only whatever goes underneath, okay.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
All right, thanks. Ava.
No questions. Thank you,
All right.
Todd, for speaking.
A very clear presentation. I have no questions either. Thank you. Aaron, do we have any public comments?
No, we don't.
Okay, great. Thank you, Todd. All right, moving on to 10.6. This is the winter data collection for cars, pools. Oh, okay, there we are.
Hi.
Hello.
Good evening.
We're getting to see lots of directors.
Yes, we are.
We get to see a lot of
Welcome.
people tonight. Good evening. I'm here to talk with you about our winter consolidated application. Thank you, Molly. So we love our acronyms in education, so I thought I'd just do a couple of quick reminders. So the consolidated application is the application that we use by the California Department of Education to distribute the categorical funds for federal funding. So this is how they distribute money to our school district from the federal programs. So the CON app, you'll hear us call it the CON app. That application is, we use the CAR system, which is our consolidated application and reporting system. That's the data collection system that's used to collect data. So we fill out this application 2 times a year. One time at the beginning, at the end of the year to apply for funding for the next school year. We also then, in the middle of the year, which is what I'm presenting now in winter, we do an update on where we're at with the spending of that money. So we fill out this application 2 times a year. Tonight is just for informational purposes, because right now what we're doing is just reporting update on expenditures. And then we'll come back again in the springtime, early summertime before the break with our application for next year and what the funding is that we're applying for next year. So just a quick reminder of the federal funding that we do receive. This is, you'll often hear us call it the title funding. So Title I funding, just as a reminder, the purpose of Title I funding is to improve basic programs operated by LEAs. The funds are used to support effective, evidence-based educational strategies that close the achievement gap and enable the students to meet the state's challenging academic standards. Our Title II money is provided to provide supplemental activities that strengthen the quality and effectiveness of our teachers, our principals, and other school leaders. There's 2 types of Title III money. The first one is our English learner focus, and that's to ensure that all EL students attain English proficiency, develop high levels of academic attainment in English, and meet the same challenging state academic standards as all other students. The Title III immigrant money is intended to support enhanced instructional opportunities for our immigrant students and their families. And then Title IV, which is also known as the Student Support and Academic Enrichment Program Funds, or SSAE. Those are intended to improve students' academic achievement by increasing local educational agencies, schools, and other local community capacity. So those are the 4 types of title funding that we currently receive. And I work together with Allison and her team to make sure that as we're spending this money, that we're meeting these criteria and that we're using the funding as it is intended. So in the application that's uploaded into board docs, you'll see that we're reporting on our title funding for the previous couple of years. So the first year I'll report on is 21-22. You'll see the total allocations that we received, the expenditures that were reported, and any remaining balances. So it's nice to see we just finished closing out 21-22. This was obviously a pandemic year, and so our spending got behind when a lot of our services were unable to be happening. And so we're just finally getting caught up. So it's great to see 21-22 is officially spent out. For 22-23, this is the money that we received for last year. Currently, right now, you'll see our allocations. You'll see the expenditures that are reported, and then you'll see the balances that we currently have left to spend by the end of this year. There's a couple I'd like to just note on. So Title I, each year we're able to carry over 15% of an allocation. Unfortunately, with this particular one, we have exceeded the 15% carryover. However, you can apply for a waiver to spend that money in the next year. And a waiver can be applied for once every 3 years. So we have applied for a waiver. In the event that the waiver is not approved, then we would have to give this money back to the state. We do not anticipate that happening. We do believe we have never submitted a waiver before, so we should be able to receive a waiver, and Allison and I have a plan on how to spend that money. Our Title III money, both English learner and immigrant, both have balances. Since we just finished spending off our 21-22 money, we are now spending in our 22-23 money. So when we come back to you and report at the end of the year, you will see that there will be expenditures reported. So that will show. However, I would like to note for our Title III immigrant money, originally, when we submitted our immigrant numbers, there was a digital error in the number of students that we submitted. So we received more funding than what we originally should have received. So we have actually set aside the overpayment of $133,000. So even though you see the balance of $330, part of that is $133 that we've set up as the AP to pay back for the overpayment. And then Title IV has been spent out for 22-23. Then we move into our 23-24 money. So as I mentioned, you'll be able to see our allocations. We currently do not have any expenditures reported at this time. And then you'll see the balances. Again, when we come back to you and report back to you in the springtime, you will see that there will be expenditures reported. The only part I wanted to add in here is that we also set aside a reservation for nonprofit private school equitable services. So we are required to provide equitable services that address the needs of eligible students that attend nonprofit private schools in our district. And so the dollar amounts that you saw on this previous far column on the right, those reservations have been set aside based on the number of students that participate at these schools. And these are the schools that we are currently collaborating with to make sure that they are providing equitable services, that we then use that reserve to help pay for those services, since those are children that reside in our district that are attending those schools. It's required by law. So again, this is just an informational item. I'm open to any questions. We'll be back in the spring to present the application for next year, as well as give you an update on expenditures at that time.
All right, thank you, Tina. All right, I'll turn to the board. Sylvia?
Two quick questions. They're not that quick. So I'm fairly familiar with Title I, Title II, Title III. Title IV, I don't totally have a good grasp of what that category is. Can you maybe just clarify that a little bit for me?
Sure. I'm looking to Allison because I myself am also learning a lot of the details around what qualifies.
Yeah, this is the one that's a mixture of things. It's the smallest amount of money, but the longest list of things. So it is supporting the whole child by providing a well-rounded education, focusing on health and safety, and supporting the effective use of technology to support learning. You might remember we do the federal addendum around the time of the LCAP, and that's where we write down the plan for all these funds. So for example, we tend to use Title IV for things like Project Cornerstone, Overdrive, which is our e-library, the materials that we need for human growth and development. So those are the kinds of things under Title IV.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you. And then my second question is regarding the reservation for the students attending the private schools. What is equitable service? What's an example of that?
It just means that MECO meets with the representatives from the private school to find out if they plan to access these funds. So it's just showing that the kids have access to the federal funds, whether they're in public school or private school, and we're the vehicle for making that happen since we receive the funds.
And we verify that they're allowable expenditures as well to make sure that they're using the money as it's intended.
I see. Thank you.
Thanks, Sylvia. Satish.
Yeah, start with Roshi and the Title I. How strict these things are? I know that like some are this gray area, like in the Title IV, for example, you said like when the definition was given, Title I and Title IV, some can be combined. So would you be able to move some money around, or is it strictly fixed in each of these criteria?
There is opportunity that some of the money can be moved around if so desired. We have not done that at this time.
Okay, second question is like now if you get a waiver, right, accepted and things like that, that is the previous year, and the current year also we have pretty allocated money, big money. So this will get added, and will there be a timeline to complete the expenses of the previous year?
Yes, absolutely. So we have 2 years to expend the money. And so Allison and I are working together to ensure that we've built the plan to be able to spend the money so that we don't end up this tight again. Coming out of the pandemic was really hard. So we're just trying to get caught up, but we have a great plan to make sure that we're spent at the end of the 2 year, which is the limit.
All right, thanks, Satish. Ava?
So you're saying, thank you for being here. So you're saying that there's money being on a 2-year cycle, and what we see right now, I'm on, I don't know, slide 6, where it says 23, 24 in the upper left-hand corner. That one right there. The money that we have in the balance, it could be some from a previous 2-year cycle and some for the current 2-year cycle.
So what you see right here on 23-24 balances are the balances for this funding year of 23-24. But if you go back, let's just say to 22-23, we still have the remaining, for example, Title I, 172 left of that pot of money from 22-23 that we still have left to spend.
And that means all of Title III, going on 22-23, all of Title III English learner money, it looks like it hasn't been spent, or it's just, we just haven't put in the numbers yet and we spent the money.
So we, up until, for this report, keep in mind, this report was done at the beginning of January. So this is only expenditures. We only captured expenditures through the end of December. So what you see on here is that, yes, we haven't spent any money. However, from January until June, you'll see those expenditures drop in the springtime. So you'll see those numbers change as we come back to you in the spring with another update.
Okay, so that means when we're looking at 23-24, that's additional money.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes, exactly.
thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thanks. I don't have any questions other than I'll just mention, I think this is the most comprehensive data collection update I've sat through for both winter or spring. So just want to say thank you for the work you put into this.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Okay. And then Aaron, do we have any public comments?
No, we don't.
Great. All right. Excellent. And thank you, Tina. All right, we're out of the information section. Moving on, item 11.1, discussion, let's see, 23-24 school safety plan drafts.
Yes, so thank you.
Thank you.
This is our annual review of the school safety plans. They need to be approved annually by March 1st for every school site. And I'd like to say a big thank you to everybody who's been working on these at our school sites, our principals and staff members, as well as the parent groups, school site councils at the school site level, as well as Carrie Ito has really done a lot of work on this year. We have had the annual school safety plan, but then we also had some district disaster plan information that we were collecting at a different time. So Carrie and also Todd and Chris, they worked together to kind of merge those things into one document to make it a little more fluid and a little easier on the school sites. And so you can see that in the district safety plan this year, and then the sites adding in their unique information. So I know that you've been reaching out. Thank you very much to your school principals, your assigned sites, and getting to know what they've been working on with the safety plans. And so really, we're just bringing the drafts to you to see if you would like to discuss any aspects before we bring it back the next time for approval.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Allison. Okay, let's go to the board. Sylvia?
So I noticed we have some safety officers with us tonight.
I did want to take a moment to acknowledge that our safety plans would not be effective without all the support of our local law enforcement. So we really appreciate that they're here. They are an integral part of us when we develop those plans and supporting our schools. So a huge thank you for being here tonight. And I'm sorry it's such a long agenda and you waited so long. Appreciate it.
So I feel like I want to take advantage of the fact that they're here and not necessarily about specifically the plan, but I'm curious in terms of the things that we're doing in partnership with our school resource officers or safety partners. If there's any kinds of updates you can give us on that.
Well, as Stacy said, we're very grateful for the partnerships. It is one of the required components of the plan that we consult with our safety officers in our local area. So that's something that's done by the principals, and then we extend invitations to come to this meeting. So all of the plans are reviewed at the site level with their local officers, and that's one of the ways that we ensure that we're getting that advice as the plans are being created. So very grateful for that opportunity.
All right, thanks, Sylvia.
Any other specific questions about the plans? I mean, I think having reviewed my schools.
All right, thanks, Sylvia.
I don't have anything. I'm still reviewing some of the things, but pretty good and standard. And thanks for keeping this.
Yeah, Ava.
I'm pretty good on this. I know that we're still reviewing a couple of the schools that I have, but I was wondering if the officers has anything extra to add to it since they are here.
Put them on the spot if they'd like.
I think we're experienced. We've gone over stuff about our safety plans and basic suggestions on that. So question.
Right, okay, for me, I'm still working through mine. I think I'm not done. I think I've read 2 of these, so I've got a few more to go. Really appreciate the fact that we created this master template at the district level. Gotten good feedback on that, and yeah, and thank you for being here and I can see the amount of work that's gone into this and the thought. Really appreciate it. And so if there are any other questions, Aaron will check to see if there are public comments.
We do not.
You do not. Okay, all right, well, thank you.
I would love to just ask a question
Yes.
since they offered that they were answering questions.
Okay.
And we will invite you up to the podium to answer,
Yeah,
so it is
our
because we do
online
record, so
listeners can
one
hear
of you, if you'd like to come up to the podium.
He takes the short straw.
Putting them on the spot.
Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
And for waiting so long. So, within our district, as we know, with 6 cities and multiple jurisdictions and multiple different, police, organizations, I know that at times there's challenges for us because sometimes incidents are happening at different cities and different communications and those kinds of things. I'm just wondering if,
Mhm.
as you guys are meeting with our schools and our principals, how, if you've been able to address any of those things or have any thoughts on how to help us be able to make sure that that safety is happening wherever it is in the district.
I can say that we are close with the neighboring school resource officer. So Sheriff's Office, Les Altos was here. He had to step out for another meeting, but so we do work closely with the officers because obviously our borders, our schools, we have students going back and forth. So we do collaborate with them whenever there's some kind of threat or safety incident that is happening. And then the schools, I know for us, and I assume it's the same way in the other cities. Each school is assigned a different officer, right? But we do overlap. So if one officer is unavailable or at one of their other schools, the principals and the school communities all know that the other officers are available and they have their contact information. So that's how we kind of collaborate between all the different schools. You're welcome.
Ava, please.
So I'm on the committee for the 2x2 with Los Altos, and one of the concerns is the safety of students getting to school, especially those who are biking or walking. And we've had 2 incidents, I believe, at Cupertino Middle where the kids were hit by cars. And I don't think you all were invited, but I was wondering if that's a possibility when we have our next conversation about the Homestead corridor, that we get input from the officers that work closely with the schools.
Yeah, we have a safe routes to school coordinator who generally will attend those meetings. So if you have a meeting coming up and you want to invite us, she's usually going to be the person that will do that. And then she relays the information back to us.
Okay.
I know she's gone to the Homestead High School ones.
Right, thank
So,
you.
yeah, absolutely. If you want us there, just let us know. We'll try to make it.
Appreciate
it. Okay, any other questions? No? All right, well, thank you. Thanks for being here and answering the questions. All right, all right, let's see. So let's move on to 11.2. This is reviewing the SIPSA drafts. So.
Yes, so just like we do every year, our sites are bringing forth their annual improvement plans that are aligned to the district priorities and the district LCAP. And I know you've been in conversations with your principals. Thank you very much. And thank you to our principals who've been working so hard to get these plans done and doing lots of meetings with staff and parents at their school sites to get everything ready for these plans. These are drafts and we'll be asking for approval at the next meeting, and we're hoping that you're having a chance to ask principals if you have questions about their individual plans, and tonight just providing that opportunity for any discussion or questions that you'd like to ask before we bring the plans back for approval at the next meeting.
Thanks, Allison. And, okay, Sylvia.
No questions. Yeah.
No questions.
None.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't have a question, but I'll just comment. I fed a part of this into ChatGPT, and it was able to, because what happens, there's so much stuff in here, right? We have the goals, the tactics, how we spend the money, and it turns out you can't send the whole document in there. It won't, it's too big and it just never comes back. But clipping out sections of it, I was able to go back and ask it questions. And so I thought that was sort of like, so it like somehow read all that. I just thought I'd share this, maybe something we could look into, because I felt there was a lot of information in there and I would have liked to. And I know I can talk to the principals, and I do, but some of these are sort of factual things. I hate to, waste people's time asking things that are just sort of factual, but I thought it was just thought I'd share that, whatever it's worth. But thank you, thanks, and yeah, and a lot of work goes into it. My favorite parts are reading the narratives at the end of each goal. I think that's the reflection. It's just really good to sort of see that. So, okay, do we have any public comments?
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you. All right, great. Okay, and moving our way down the agenda here, discussion. Action 12.1. This is a second reading of the new board policy on the remote work. So who will lead us off?
Yes, so we had brought the first read at the board advance and we did take
Action since we need to.
Because it's discussion action, we can discuss first and then determine if you guys want to take action on it. Completely up to you guys if you want.
so we had brought forward the first read at the board advance, winter board advance, and the second read includes the staff feedback, which was regarding that employees who work remotely originally it was just listed with a technology device, no S, and we have added in that S.
Excellent. Okay, all right, thank you. Any questions from the board on this? This is, I think, the second reading of something we looked at before. Sylvia?
No questions.
Okay. Satish?
Yeah, I already have my questions answered
Okay.
previously. Thank you.
All right, and thank you for making the devices plural. So, okay, so are folks up for approving this tonight? If so, I will welcome a motion.
I will move motion.
Thank you, Satish.
A second.
Thanks, Sylvia. Any other discussion? If not, let's
Trustee Leong.
Aye.
Trustee Manhattan.
Aye.
Trustee Chow.
Aye.
Trustee Lu.
Aye. All right, great. Next, passes 4-0. Next item then, oh, sorry, public comments on this one?
No, they're not.
Great, thanks. All right, then going on to 12.2, again, a second reading of a board policy on academic honesty. So
Yes, so we had brought this first read again at the board advance. This was incorporating CSBA's recommendations for AI. At the board advance, we had discussed possibly coming back to this after the presentation staff had done regarding AI. There were no changes made from the first to second read.
Okay, great, thank you. Any questions, Sylvia, Satish, Ava?
No.
Okay, I don't have any questions either, but I'm happy to see we're starting to get these policies in place to, pave the path for more use of AI potentially in our schools. So, would anybody like to make a motion? Okay.
I'll move.
All right, thank you, Sylvia. Can I need a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Satish, and let's go for a vote.
Trustee Leong.
Aye.
Trustee Manhattan.
Aye.
Trustee Chow.
Aye.
Trustee Lu.
Aye. Okay, excellent.
And there were no public comments.
comments. Thank you. You would think something like this would be easy to remember. I just by doing it. Okay, all right, moving on to 13.1 board activities. Anybody like to lead us off here?
We had wellness committee. We did a lot of discussions and something new we learned also in the participation. So some of the follow-up things are coming in the upcoming stuff.
Okay.
That.
Okay, thanks. And, okay.
So back in January, and on the 19th, went to Dilworth. They had a family game night. It was really successful. There was lots of parents there and the kids, and definitely enough board games. And unfortunately it was rainy, so it was during stormy. So they didn't have any outside play, but it was good. Also this past Saturday, I attended at the California School Board Association. They had a master in governance training. Yeah, so did that. And
How many of those did you do? There are 5 in total.
so I think I did the last of them, but I had to reschedule the third one.
Oh, okay.
So I think I have one more to
All
go.
right.
Been attending those throughout the school year, and then just before this meeting, there was like informational session with Board of Supervisors Committee and Otterly on educator workforce housing.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything, Sylvia?
I feel like it's been a long week. I attended the capital advisors perspectives on the governor's budget last week with the budget advisory committee, and I thought that was really great. So thank you to Chris for having the whole committee attend that and register for that. I think that's a great idea, like going forward to continue to have the committee, not just when it happens to land on the same day as the meeting, but to maybe have the committee attend these kinds of things, because I think it's just really useful to get the context and to get that big picture view. And then I attended the same meeting that Ava did.
For me, it's, I visited a few schools. I think the main thing I want to reflect on is the state of the district event. I think every year it just gets better. I think just, my favorite part of the presentation is when Superintendent Yao showed that there was that chart of what we've accomplished the last 3 years and the beautiful graphics. Thank you, Aaron. But it just sort of made me really proud to be part of CUSD, the hard work that we've done to kind of these advances. And so, but everything was just so well done. It's like I said, it just feels more and more polished each year, and love the coordinated theme and look forward to getting a copy of the power. I guess now we have a PowerPoint theme for the official CUSD. It just looks so beautiful, so well done. And thank you for the water bottle. Yeah, so.
Can I just plus one on
Please.
that? Because it was just a really great event, and just kudos to the staff and to everyone who had a hand in it. I love these, I'm gonna steal Satish's the booklet that was made.
Mhm.
And I hope that this is like being distributed at like open enrollment and all of those things, because I think all of our families should have this and know what's going on, because it is so great. I felt that same sense of pride, like of being a part of the district and seeing how much we've been able to do for the last few years. So thank you to all of the staff for doing that.
Okay, great. Thanks. All right. Then next item, agenda setting 14.1. Anybody have anything to suggest for future? Okay, Ava.
I was wondering if we can get an update on when will we have the study session for special education?
Yeah, I can give a date to you. We're still working with staff as to formulating that, whether to do it as a study session or to do it board advance.
Okay, and then I forgot with the update on the survey, for when will they come back with the exploration of the bond?
So the survey did go out January 20th. It took a little longer to get it translated in. So we are hopeful that it'll be back at the end of February to come to our last February 29th board meeting.
Our next meeting.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Anything else from anyone? All right, if not, then I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting here at 8:16.